On behalf of AmWestEntertainment.com, I'm Joe Christofak, and we're about to present the preview video for Week 5 of the Dubai World Cup Carnival. And yes, my partner has returned, the incomparable Pat Cummings, and I can only hope that I performed admirably last week in his absence, of course. He stamped this video in a big way. His presence was felt in the Bankroll Challenge. We'll tell you more about that a little bit later on, as Pat was as hot as a blazing forest fire. And Pat, before we get started, please confirm that all rumors of you running around in a Speedo on Kite Beach are completely unfounded.
I believe there was a crazy Chicago, Illinois native who made up that rumor. It was, in fact, erroneous on all counts. Erroneous.
Well, thank God. I don't wonder in Dubai if you would be put in jail for that. But let's move forward because we've got some important things to talk about. What did you do in Dubai, Pat, the last couple of weeks? I saw some interesting pictures of you rubbing elbows with some pretty important people that were there for a golf tournament.
Happened to run into Lee Westwood and Ernie Els on Thursday, last Thursday for the Carnival, and got to spend some time with them and talk about the races. And you know, they were asking me for different horses that I liked and was giving them one or two in each race. And fortunately for me, I happened to have the winner in, I think, 6 of the 7 races in the first 2. So we were very close to having a big night, at least I was, but it wasn't quite big enough to get a lot of those over the top. We only ended up with one on-top winner. That was Odd Tug last week. But, you know, had Vercingetorix second, had I'm Back second, had quite a few horses run. Muanid was second as well, so it was a good night overall, and it was nice to interact with those fellas. It was a good time.
And Pat, as I always preach in every video and every venue and every arena that I'm in, it's not who you pick on top, it's how you bet. And you bet very well last week, cashing all of your wagers in the Bankroll Challenge for some lucrative prices. We'll talk more about that, as I mentioned, a little bit later on. But first, as I mentioned, this video is brought to you by AmWestEntertainment.com. Lots of great Dubai Racing Carnival information there. Also, the partner website, amwager.com. If you're wagering on these races or races throughout the world, amwager.com is the place to go. Fan-friendly. The wagering tools are fantastic, as is the rewards program. Pat, before we get into Week 5, we should recap week number 4, and it was stamped by Vercingetorix's performance. And going in, a lot of people, including yourself, thought maybe this horse needed the race, and he did get a little bit tired after making the lead in the deep stretch in hand. But basically, based on that performance, to me, he's going to be scary the rest of the way out.
Yeah, and I don't think he got tired. I think he just got lazy. I actually talked with Christophe Soumillon after that race, and he said he just kind of stopped. Once he hit the lead, he just idled up on front, and then he got after him to remind him of what he was there to do. And he kind of rebroke a little bit and held sway. Impressive effort, easy effort against what a lot of people thought was a real up-and-comer in True Story. I still think True Story is going to be just fine, but this was a very nice effort from the king, so to speak, Vercingetorix. Expect him to come back Super Saturday in the Jebel Hatta and then bounce onward there to the Dubai Duty Free. It's worth noting that the Dubai Turf, formerly known as the Dubai Duty Free, Abel Friend, the big Hong Kong horse, they were talking about going to Dubai for that race. They indicated earlier this week that they will probably skip a Dubai trip, and that certainly made, I think, the connections back at Blue Stables very happy about that with Vercingetorix. You know, there was plenty of value about the races, Joe. I was really surprised at some of the prices we saw on the tote. Recapped that in the recap article at DubaiRaceNight.com last week. But Atug 6-1, that was a little surprising to me. Granted, I set him at a 6-1 morning line, but I guess I just pegged that. I guess right, but it still seemed like value to me, and it was, and he won just barely, but he won. But to me, the real surprise was seeing horses like United Color go off at 12-1. He came on and ran a very good third placing behind a front-running winner in Muanid. There was still value out there. You can find it. It's there. Go value hunting, and we're going to certainly do that again this week. And then James Doyle won 3 of the 7 races on the night. He is the leader in the jockey title at the moment, along with trainer Saeed bin Surur, who had 2 of those 3 winners. He's riding out of his skin, and with some more big chances this week.
Well, Pat, back to Vercingetorix. If he runs on World Cup night, which is always a show, I'm going to suggest in advance to Frank Gabriel to do a pre-race Super Bowl-like musical extravaganza. And instead of Katy Perry holding the reins on a mechanical lion, I'm going to suggest that role for you.
Go ahead, Joe.
I don't think it's going to get very far. Doesn't mean I can't
breath,
suggest
Joe.
it.
Wasted breath.
All right, well, enough goofing around. Let's talk about what's going to happen on Thursday. It's week 5 of the Dubai World Cup Carnival. February 5th is the date. 6 thoroughbred races, races 2 through 7. Very excited about the feature, the 6th race at $250,000 Al Maktoum Challenge. This is round 2, a Group 2, 1,900 meters this time around, and it's the return of the Dubai World Cup winner. African Story, first try on dirt. We'll talk more about that when we get to race number 6. But Pat, first, let's start with race number 3. I think race number 2 is a very bettable, intriguing race as well. We'll talk more about that when we get to our overall selections. But in the third race, we've got what looks to be a 2-horse race on paper. Adidiem and the horse that beat him last time, Local Time.
Yeah, the fillies shape up here in the 1,000 guineas, and you have to go back and watch this race. It's going to get a little tough to see these horses at the finish because the way the camera action was for this race, but Adidem goes to the front. Local Time stalks the pace. Good Place ends up missing the kick, and so I'm really just focusing on the top 2 here. And they battle it out, duke it out in the stretch. Adidem got away on the lead, opened up a gap. Local Time, who was our tip, came and ran her down at the finish. It was a very tight finish, could have gone either way, went slightly to Local Time. Now what one has to ask, who moves forward? I think that performance from Adidem was suggestive of a very fit horse first up, who is very likely to improve here going forward. I'm tending to believe that Local Time, we got a lot out of her in that last race. I don't know how much extra she has to advance and improve off of that particular run. So for that reason, I side with Adidem in the UAE 1,000 guineas.
Yeah, slight difference in the distance here, Pat, and obviously people will say, well, Local Time caught her last time at 1,400. They're going 16, but Adidem obviously has a little bit better tactical speed. It will be a rider's race. It looks like a 2-horse race. Did the distance come into play at all for you, or you just think that this horse has more chance to be progressive and therefore hold safe this time around?
I think it will be a tactical race, Joe, as it was last time with a small field. Here it's an even smaller group, and you have a lot of common interests. So you have 3 horses from Godolphin, 2 from Sheikh Hamdan, and then the third runner, who was Runner, who ran third in the trial, well beaten 10 lengths behind the top 2. Tactically speaking, Adidem goes forward. Yodeling, the new shooter to this group, will not go, and I don't think Charazal is going to go forward. Good Place, we'll see how she breaks, and Local Time probably isn't going to want to be on the lead either. I don't think the extra distance is a big factor. What is a factor potentially is the 4.5 kilogram difference, which is around 9 or 10 pounds of difference between the two of them. Adidem carries 59.5. Local Time carries 55. That's because Adidem is a Southern Hemisphere bred. She's older.
Right.
I just think, tactically speaking, Adidem is the one who will benefit from the race tactics. She will improve more than Local Time will in this spot. I think we got a lot out of Local Time last time. So Adidem for me, but they're both going to be short in the wagering. So, either way, I think you're on the favorite there.
And real quick on Yodeling, because you briefly mentioned this horse, 2 for 2, beat a 4-horse field and a 3-horse field. Obviously very well bred, coming back fresh. William Buick returns of the saddle for Charlie Appleby, but you're not a fan based on our earlier email exchange.
Yeah, look, I just think she beat some less accomplished rivals.
That's not what you said in the email.
That I'm putting it nicely now, Joe. She beat some very less accomplished rivals in her first 2 starts. Look, they were wins. You can't knock that. She did it easily, but they were odd races tactically. She broke on top in that 3-horse field, and the other 2 rivals basically missed the break, and she was wrangled back off of the pace to allow one of them to go forward. They were almost farcical, those races. You could say only 6 runners here, but the quality of these horses, these fillies, I just think is much better. So Look, she is the unknown quantity in Dubai on this surface. She's certainly bred for it by Medaglia d'Oro,
Right.
but give me odd Edom and local time before I take yodeling. She's going to have to prove it to me.
All right, let's move on to the fourth race. And Mike DeCock seems to have a stranglehold on this. We've got Forzy Waltz, we've got Mastermind in this race, Burnt Sugar. Obviously, look like she has a little bit, or excuse me, he has a little bit of talent as well, but comes from way off the pace. Pat, this is a 7 furlong grass event, and I know that Mastermind is a horse that you're intrigued by. I'm just curious if MDK maybe named this horse after you.
MDK didn't name this horse. I'm sure it was Sheikh Hamdan and his crew that did. Mastermind, to me, this is a horse that has a great edge over the rest of this field, without any question. And that was the race that he ran here at one of the local meetings a couple weeks back. Let's go back to it and take a look here. We're picking this up in the stretch. Granted, this is a shorter race. This is over 1,200 meters. Now they'll stretch out to 1,400. But Mastermind just comes up here, runs forward on the front end, gets caught, comes back. The third place finisher from this race, Phil Zange, he comes back and wins last weekend in a local race. A good performance, but this was against older company, Joe. This was against 4 or 5, 6-year-olds, accomplished horses, a lot of winners in there. Now he's essentially taking a massive drop down to face 3-year-olds. Some of these horses are maidens. Some of them are just nowhere near as accomplished as Mastermind, as the field that Mastermind faced last time. And to think that the horse that he was in front of at the finish, immediately behind him, and they were well clear of the rest of the field, that horse has come back and put on a very nice and a fairly easy win. The margin wasn't big, but it was the way he did it, Phil Zange. I really like Mastermind here. I like him so much, I'm going to make him the wager best bet of the day. And given the presence of stable companion Fories Waltz, the South African punters are big on that top-class South African form, and they see a lot of ones there on Fories Waltz, and I think they're going to jump towards Fories Waltz, as we've seen has happened in the early tote action. I certainly think Fories Waltz is in with a chance. Burnt Sugar has a class edge on some of these, considering his run in France at the ARC meeting. But for me, it's Mastermind. Really like Mastermind in the Maidan Classic trial.
All right, well, race number 6 is the feature. It's the Group 2 $250,000 Round 2 of the Al Maktoum Challenge. Could see some of these horses pop back up in the Dubai World Cup if they are deserving. And Pat, we've got the Dubai World Cup winner from last year, African Story, making his first run since. You also have Prince Bishop, who kind of reinvented himself at the Carnival last year. Now at the tender age of 8, this horse, another one coming back in off of a layoff as African Story. And the one thing they have in common is neither one of them has performed on dirt. Then you've got up-and-comers like Cooptado and Emirates Flyer, also the very consistent Surfer, who you've made the morning line favorite. A fascinating race from many different perspectives.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Joe. There are really a lot of factors. This is a massive puzzle, this race. So let's break it down from a pace standpoint first. I think number 1, Capital Attraction, he typically goes forward. Cooptado did it on the front end in the Entisar Stakes, a listed event here back in December. Surfer likes to typically race handy. He may be just behind the pace, but he's drawn in gate 5, and the main speed, I think, is drawn in gates 1 and 3. So unless he tucks right in behind them, I mean, Prince Bishop's going to want that position that Surfer wants on the rail. African Story, he doesn't mind being close to it either, as he has been in the past. Number 8, Ennobled Friend, likes to go forward too. I think there's a lot of horses that want to be up in the mix. And Le Bernardin has been another one who hasn't been that far off the pace. Frankie Four Fingers, who ran well in the Maktoum Challenge first round. There's a lot of horses that want to be up there in the mix. So strategically, I think there's some big question marks here. From a trip standpoint, Surfer's the morning line favorite. But when we go back and we take a look at the Maktoum Challenge, in both that race and the previous race, the Dubai Creek Mile, my gosh, Joe, he had an easy run of it on the inside in both of them. So let's go back to the video. This is the race. This is the Maktoum Challenge on opening night of the Carnival. Surfer is on the inside here. He's had an inside run throughout. Frankie Four Fingers was on the lead for a long way in this, and frankly, he was a horse that I really just missed. in my analysis. I missed the dirt pedigree. I just kind of ignored him. That was maybe a bit of a mistake. He went off a very nice price there, but you're going to get a much shorter price in this race. We also have two other horses to consider here. Emirates Flyer, he's the widest horse here, Joe. Widest horse in the green colors. And then behind him and kind of inside a little bit more is Ha Thek in the blue silks of Sheikh Hamdan with the black cap. And look, Surfer just comes up the inside. Frankie Four Fingers stays on. But man, Emirates Flyer was wide on that turn. He covered the most ground. I thought this was a credible run. Suggested he could get over the dirt. He came from 9th or 10th in the early pace of that race. I liked that performance, Joe. I thought it was a good way to kind of show that he can get over the surface. And now he's drawn in 7. He has Audrey De Vries on board, who has always shown an ability to save ground. He likes to do that. It is one of his specialties. He might have to work out a bit of a trip, but when we go back and look at the Trackist data, this is where our Trackist stat of the day comes in. Emirates Flyer covered 17 meters more than Surfer did. That's the equivalent of 6.5 lengths, roughly, Joe. That, to me, is meaningful. He was only beaten just more than 4 lengths in this race. He stayed on well. He'll get back over a longer trip. This is a horse who was 3rd in the UAE Derby. He was 2nd in the Albastakia over a longer trip. I like this horse in this race. I think he's value as well off a 12-1 morning line where he'll probably be forgotten a little bit. So I've gone ahead and made Emirates Flyer the Amwager value play of the day, 12-1 in the Maktoum Challenge.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, Surfer has that those 2 local wins on this racetrack, but he was 15th behind African Story, well beaten by Prince Bishop a couple times as well, but he's a horse that's in good form, so it'll be interesting to see how this race is bet with Prince Bishop, with African Story, with the up-and-comer Emirates Flyer, who I also like, and then with Cooptado, who was so very impressive in his win on the 18th. So,
yeah.
So
if we look at this, there's positives and negatives to all of these. You brought it up. Prince Bishop and African Story are both now turning 8. I just don't know. I know we've seen it from them before. We've seen them have success. Prince Bishop won this race last year. Can they bounce back again, start their season again, and run a big one here? That's a question mark that I think is a legitimate one. Africans, how will both of them go on the dirt? They're both by sires, these classic Darley sires, Dubawi and, Pivotal, who has, Pivotal is clearly, his progeny have gotten over the dirt in the early going, at Maidan at least. There's no question there. But then you have Cooptado. Is he going to get a lone lead again? Is he going? He was a little slow away, but then kind of rushed up to the lead last time. But he's a very progressive sort. Right. I thought that was a good first-up effort. First time against Elders. The Toast of New York form is certainly good form. So we'll see what happens with him. Fascinating race from a betting standpoint. I wasn't a big fan of the subsequent form from the horses that were behind Cooptado. So it works a couple different ways there. Le Bernardin, he beat local handicappers more or less in that impressive win he had on the second week of the Carnival. Is he going to move forward? He's saddled with another wide draw. Ennobled Friend threw in a clunker last time after having run very well against Surfer. So fascinating group of 11 here. A lot in with chances. Ha Thek could be another one who just clunks along for second or third, as he has done many times in the past. How strong is the pace? How does it all hold up? Great renewal of the Maktoum Challenge, and almost assuredly there will be some in here that we will see in the $10 million race on World Cup night.
Lots of questions, many of which will be answered in Maktoum Challenge round number 2. Pat, let's move right along here. Race number 7 we want to discuss as well in this video. We've got a lukewarm 4-1 morning line favorite in Musical Theory, but lots of horses with a chance. $120,000 up for grabs in the Kepsa Mile. We've got 1,600 meters equals 1 mile on the grass.
Field of 16. I think the biggest story here is that Belgian Bill, who was a winner, couldn't even make it into the race. He's the first reserve on this list. That's how competitive this race is. To me, I think it's a big night for Mike DeCock coming up. We tipped him with Ad Idem, tipped him with Star Empire. I'm going to tip him in the tipped him with Mastermind as well.
Right.
I think he could make it 4 wins on the night here with Ajib, who was one we added for the notebook after the first night of the Carnival. He ran over 1,000 meters, his first start in 16 months. He comes in here as the top weight, 60 kilograms. That might be difficult for him, but 1,600 meters, definitely much more in his wheelhouse. He proved very fit first up after clearly just wasn't able to get to the races last season. That was an impressive effort, and when we saw what he did in that 1,000-meter effort, I thought over 1,600, 1,400, that would be much better for him. Ajib for me here, but you can make a case for just about any of them. Music Theory ran very well behind Safety Check. Of course, he came back to run well. Our channel probably needed that one last time. Slumdog Millionaire is better off in the weights and better off in the draw than he was in his handicap debut. Captain Lars, he took a ton of money when he ran in that wide-open Belgianville handicap. Now he's drawn in gate 2. He might be run a little more from off the pace than he kind of broke forwardly last time. And I don't think Van Rooney is without a chance to hit the board at a massive price. Getting back on grass, trainer Ali Jan is the one who put that Phil Zange into the winner's circle last week in Dubai in a local race. So the barn there going well. He's a horse that could run in a placing. Richard Hannon has Magic City. He is certainly in with chances, a couple chances on this week's card. A lot of ways to go, but I think Ajib to me is the most progressive here that I want to be involved with. He's getting into the right spot.
2 horses you didn't mention, Short Squeeze, who had a trouble trip last time out. This horse is a closer, though, Pat, and I don't see a ton of speed in this race. And Nolahay is kind of the horse that I've got a question mark next to. Not sure how this horse is going to run, but if you're stretching out numbers in the gimmicks, maybe you throw this one in for a try. Okay, the time has come for us to release all of our selections, Pat. Why don't you run through them, and I'll give you mine, and then we'll get to the bankroll challenge.
All right, so in the second race of the day, I've actually tipped number 18, Fitzjan, but he is the second reserve, Joe. He has the best form in the race, but there haven't been many scratchings this year, so he's going to need some help. He'll need 2 scratchings in the main body of the field to get in. If he doesn't, I've sided with number 1, Al Margo, in what I think is a wide-open betting race. Odd Edom in the 1,000 guineas, Mastermind in the Maidan Classic, as we talked about. Then Star Empire, Emirates Flyer, there's going to be value there almost assuredly. I don't think we're going to be able to avoid that. And then Ajib to end the night. As it is, we've tipped 4 of the 6 thoroughbred winners to go the way of Mike DeCock. That would be a big night for the group from Blue Stables. We'll see.
All right, well, here are my selections. Race 2, I went with My Catch at 30-1 in the morning line. Showed some promise during last year's Carnival. Returns fresh and should be a big price. Talked about Yodeling. I'm going to take the new shooter and the unknown factor in that race. Agree with Pat with Mastermind. Azima, I think, is the class of race number 5. We'll see how well this one comes back fresh. Cuptado, slight for me over Emirates Flyer. I like them both. We'll talk more about that when we get to the Bankroll Challenge. And I'll go to our channel. Tactical advantage possibly in a race that appears to be void of speed. Has some upside. Price is right in a very contentious finale. Our channel for me at 12-1. Pat, if Yodeling wins that race, based on how much you have dissed that horse, I think you should have to yodel in next week's video.
Okay, Joe.
Yes.
No problem.
Right. Well, see, now we're going to get to the fun part, which is obviously the Bankroll Challenge, and you crushed it last week. Tug 30-1 at 14.20, and Cypher ran second for you and paid nicely, $6.40 to place. That was a slight profit. And then you keyed in Cypher first and second in the try. The horse ran second. You got back $260.45 for your $45 investment. Therefore, you are showing a significant profit in the Bankroll Challenge through 4 weeks of $358.70. And you crushed it last week, but what do you have for an encore, Mr. Cummings?
Well, that's 75% profit ROI that we have right now. We'll see if we can hold it. But I just really like Mastermind. I think there will still be some value about him in that Maidan Classic trial. $35 to win, straight on the nose for Mastermind. It's going to be a 16-horse field. He's well drawn. I'm going with Mastermind there. Then I'm going to take a $10 exacta of Mastermind over Stable Companion Forey's Waltz, and then that, I think, probably classy Richard Hannon runner in Burnt Sugar. Then we're going to go to Emirates Flyer. We're going to take kind of the same approach we did with Encipher last week. He went off at 16-1 on the International Tote. That was a nice price. We're going to take him in tries, run him first and second, bank him around 4 horses: Prince Bishop, Kuptado, African Story, Surfer, and Hathek, and see what happens. And then we'll use all on that third position.
Well, I made a marginal profit in the Bankroll Challenge last week, a $62.50 profit after hitting the pick 3 that started with race number 5. 48 bucks turned it into $162.50. I'm about $100 away from break even through 4 weeks of the Bankroll Challenge, and I'm going to make a small wager on my catch in race number 2, play a $40 pick 3 on a $1 increment. Starting in race number 4, I think that race number 5 is a 2-horse race, so we'll spread with 5 horses in the first leg and 4 horses in the third leg. And then race number 6, a $5 exacta, King, Kuptado, and Emirates Flyer on top. If I can get decent prices on both of those and one of the other horses runs second in the exacta, that should play well. And then with the final $13 in my bankroll, $3 to win, $10 to place on our channel in race number 7. Don't forget you can follow Pat and I on Twitter, Dubai Race Night and Trackus Racing for Pat, Joey Decay Racing for me. Pat, the Mock Tomb Challenge is going to be a fascinating race on what is a great program for week 5. Any final thoughts quickly?
Overall, Joe, I have found this to be a very approachable carnival. I think it's been fun to see the way the dirt is playing, even though it seems to be favoring some front runners. Don't forget that horses are closing from off the pace. I think that the track is probably going to be mislabeled by many as aiding front runners, but these are good horses that have been going forward. It's not long shots that are making all the running, and horses are running from off the pace, and they are getting into the placings. In Cypher and United Color, almost catching Muad'Nib, who was only 5-1 last week. I thought that was a very good sign as to how even that course was playing. It's playing more even than most people are going to recognize. Too often, horse players want to simplify bias to aid them. It provides a confirmation bias. I don't think it's right to do that and to judge it this way, at least not at this point in time. I think it's a very fair surface. It's been fun to play, and I'm ready to dive back into it on Thursday.
Adjust your times accordingly, but in the U.S. on the East Coast, first post for the first thoroughbred race will be 10:20 Eastern Time. As I mentioned, round 2 of the Mock Tomb Challenge is the featured event. You can tune in live at mwestentertainment.com or watch and wager at mwager.com. For the incomparable one, Pat Cummings, nice enough to join us live this week, I'm Joe Christofak. Have a great week 5 of the Dubai World Cup Carnival.